Have you ever met someone, and within days, you're already imagining conversations that haven't happened yet, missing them even when they're offline, checking your phone every 5 minutes, and somehow, they start feeling like home? You barely know their favorite color, but the thought of losing them already scares you. And the worst part? You know you're getting attached too fast, but you can't stop it. So the real question is, are you actually falling in love? Or is your brain trying to heal something much older? Psychology says that the way you attach to people today was actually programmed when you were a child. British psychologist John Bowlby introduced something called attachment theory. He discovered that children who didn't receive consistent emotional safety from caregivers grow up constantly searching for it in others. Not love, but safety. For example, imagine a child whose parent was loving sometimes, but cold or distant other times. One day they hug you, next day they ignore you. Your brain learns love can disappear at any moment. So now, as an adult, when someone gives you attention, your brain panics and says, "Hold on to this before it's gone." And suddenly, a stranger becomes emotionally important in just a few days. Here are some subtle signs that your attachment system is working overtime. You feel a false sense of closeness. You meet someone once and already feel like they understand you better than anyone else. This isn't connection. This is emotional familiarity. Your brain isn't recognizing them. It's recognizing the feeling of being seen, something it didn't get enough of growing up. You start prioritizing them over yourself. You cancel plans, ignore work, stay up late just to talk. Not because they asked you to, but because losing their attention feels like danger. Your nervous system starts treating their approval like survival. You overthink every small change. They text less, reply late, sound slightly different, and suddenly, you feel anxious, restless, even physically uncomfortable. This is because emotional rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. A study using fMRI scans found that social rejection lights up the anterior cingulate cortex, the same area triggered during physical injury. Your brain literally thinks you're being hurt. You fantasize about a future too soon. After just a few conversations, you imagine vacations together, introducing them to your friends, or even growing old together. This isn't romantic imagination. It's your brain trying to create emotional security as fast as possible. Reason 1. Inconsistent love in childhood. If love was unpredictable growing up, you learned to cling harder when you received it. This creates something known as anxious attachment style. You become hypersensitive to emotional distance. Even neutral silence feels like abandonment. Reason 2. Emotional neglect. Sometimes, your parents provided food, clothes, education, but not emotional validation. You weren't abused, but you also weren't understood. So now, when someone finally listens to you deeply, your brain releases dopamine and oxytocin very quickly. And that feeling becomes addictive. You're not addicted to the person. You're addicted to finally being emotionally acknowledged. Reason 3. Parentification. Some children grow up becoming the emotional support system for their parents. They become the therapist, the problem solver, the mature one. They never learn how to be emotionally held. So as adults, they desperately attach to anyone who feels emotionally safe. Reason 4. Fear of abandonment. If someone important left you emotionally or physically in childhood, your brain now constantly scans for signs of rejection. And when someone new comes into your life, you try to secure their presence quickly before they can leave too. Think about someone who grows up with a parent who was loving, but also emotionally unavailable due to stress or work. that child becomes extremely sensitive to attention. Now imagine someone texting them, "I had a great time talking to you today." To a secure person, that's just a nice message. To someone with anxious attachment, that message feels like emotional oxygen, and they start attaching instantly. Getting attached too fast doesn't mean you're weak. It means your nervous system learned that connection equals survival. You're not falling too quickly. You're trying to feel safe in ways you never felt before. And until those old emotional wounds are understood, your brain will keep choosing intensity over stability. So next time you feel yourself getting attached too fast, don't ask, "Why am I so needy?" Ask, "What part of me is still looking for safety?" Because sometimes we don't fall in love with people. We fall in love with the peace they temporarily give us. Why do I get attached to someone I just met? Because your brain is not attaching to the person, it's attaching to the feeling they give you. If someone makes you feel heard, understood, or emotionally safe, your brain releases dopamine and oxytocin. Now here's the catch. If emotional safety was rare in your childhood, your brain will try to hold on to this new source of comfort immediately. So you're not falling for them. You're attaching to how safe they make you feel. Is getting attached too fast a red flag? Not always. It becomes a red flag when you ignore your own needs, fear losing them constantly, or feel anxious when they're not around. Healthy love grows slowly. Fast attachment usually grows from fear of losing connection, not from genuine emotional bonding. Why do I feel anxious when they don't text back? Because your nervous system interprets silence as rejection. When someone you like suddenly becomes less responsive, your brain activates the same alarm system used for physical danger. That's why your chest feels tight. You keep checking your phone. You overthink their last message. It's not drama. It's your survival system reacting to a possible loss of connection. Why do I imagine a future with someone too soon? Because your brain is trying to create emotional security. If you didn't grow up feeling stable love, your mind tries to build safety quickly by imagining long-term relationships, living together, or even marriage. It's not that you love them deeply. It's that your brain is trying to protect you from uncertainty. Can childhood experiences make me emotionally dependent? Yes. If your caregivers were emotionally distant, inconsistent, or unavailable, you may develop something called anxious attachment style. As an adult, you may rely on romantic partners for reassurance that you are valued or not abandoned. Why do I feel empty when they pull away? Because your brain has already started depending on them for emotional regulation. When they're present, you feel calm. When they withdraw, your nervous system becomes dysregulated. It feels less like missing someone and more like losing emotional stability. Why do I always fall for emotionally unavailable people? Because emotionally unavailable people feel familiar. If love in your childhood was unpredictable, your brain may associate inconsistency with attraction. So without realizing it, you might chase the same emotional patterns, hoping this time the ending will be different. Is this love or just attachment? Love grows with trust, understanding time. Attachment grows with fear, validation, emotional need. If the thought of losing them scares you more than the idea of actually knowing them deeply, it's likely attachment, not love. Why do I lose interest once they start liking me back? Because your brain was chasing emotional validation. Once you receive it, the emotional hunt is over. And now your nervous system doesn't feel the same urgency anymore. Sometimes, we crave the feeling of being wanted more than the person themselves. Can I stop getting attached too fast? Yes, but not by forcing yourself to care less. You stop fast attachment by understanding your emotional triggers building self-validation, and learning that connection doesn't equal survival. Because when safety comes from within, you stop chasing it from others. You're not weak for getting attached too fast. You were just never taught how safe love is supposed to feel. So if you want to break unhealthy emotional patterns and build real connection instead of emotional dependency, subscribe now, and let's understand your mind together.